In anticipation of the new 28 years later, I decided to check out the first one, 28 Days Later, for the first time ever. I already reviewed this on my other platform where I have tons of other content, but I was kind of going through the motions, so here we go. And from everything I've heard about this movie through the years, I expected a wild ride. And I kind of got that, but not for good reasons. The shaky camera work here reminds me of a Michael Bay Transformers flick. The amount of shaky cam in this movie is very disorienting. And that's because director Danny Boyle recorded this on a camcorder, a Canon XL1. Danny Boyle used handheld techniques to help give us one of the most grounded, grittiest zombie movies of all time. And while I love the idea and respect the vision, some of these scenes, specifically the stairway scene, are incomprehensible. And while I'm willing to give any movie a fair shot, I'm not really a zombie fan. Every zombie TV show or movie is kind of the same. It's always apocalypse this or end of the world that. But there are some diamonds in the rough. And if 28 Days Later flushed out the story better, 28 Days Later would have been one of the few on my zombie list. And I say that because I see the potential here. Zombies that don't bite but brutalize. A virus that can't go airborne. And from what I'm seeing from the 28 Years Later trailer, they're also evolving. And spoiler alert, isolates this event in the UK. I think there could have been something golden here. But while the shots of the empty streets of London are impressive on an $8 million budget, they waste time on that and give us a film that as a whole is lackluster at best. At least in my opinion. And once again, this story could have been good. There was a lot to work with here. Especially that thing with the soldiers at the end. And when you see the plane flying overhead, proving that this is a thing solely happening in the UK, I was actually surprised. Pleasantly. But unfortunately, I can only give 2002's 28 Days Later a 5 out of 10. There's not even enough zombies here to hold my interest. But now that I'm done with the nuance, here's my review of 28 Weeks Later. This movie gave me a migraine. Since we're all waiting for 28 years later, I decided to kill some time and watch the first two movies for the first time. But before I get into this in my 28 Days Later video, I referenced the Michael Bay Transformers films, and I know I'm not the only one who had trouble back then following along with those fight scenes. It's easier now, especially with the benefit of 4K. But there's so much shaky cam in 28 Weeks Later that for me, it makes this almost unwatchable. And that really is my biggest criticism on this film. And yes, we get more zombie scenes in this one, and that is an improvement. But every one of those scenes is like the director struggling to keep the camera from falling out of his hands. But I can give this movie credit in every other aspect. Like in this one, we don't have grown-ass adults making stupid decisions for short-lived zombie scenes. Now we have two children to do that, and also upping the ante, like setting up a domino effect of just death. Doubling or even tripling the amount of zombie scenes we got in the last one. And that opening scene, I've heard about this opening scene before many times, but seeing it is something else. It takes a bit to get into, but of course they have to set up the world, the situation, how this even happened in the first place. But I love that opening scene, and it gets you to question what you would do in that situation. Because you don't really blame the guy. I mean, what are you gonna do? But also, it's so fucked. My point is, you see both sides of the situation. And if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. However, and this is another negative in the storytelling for me, the movie kind of brushes over it. And this is where I get into spoilers. In the beginning of the movie, there's a couple hiding out at an old couple's farm. And that's when the zombies attack. And with his wife caught between a wall and a room full of zombies, he decides to ditch her. I mean, yeah, I could take on at least one zombie. But 3, maybe 4 super strong fucking rage-filled zombies? There's no way. Even if you survive the attack, you're turning into a zombie, your wife's turning into a zombie, somebody's gonna die. But here's the thing. He tells his kids, it's brushed over, he lies, of course, but later on they realize their mother's alive. But how? Turns out she's immune. She has the virus, but it's not affecting her directly. She's not a zombie. But later on, a zombie attacks her. And guess what? She dies.
But why didn't she die when she was trapped in that room filled with zombies? Like, even if she was infected, she's getting pummeled to death, like what happens later on. So, giant plot hole. But at least in this one, unlike in the first, there's not a lot of wasted time just traversing an empty city. Yeah, we do get some of that. But there's not a lot of downtime. Once you think you got a moment to rest, here come the zombies. And I appreciate that. But a lot of these zombie scenes, not only is this movie not scary, it's downright goofy at times. But it's mostly with the zombie scenes, especially with the jump scares. And then my frustration kicks in because it's more shaky cam. And it just gives me a splitting headache. But then the movie kind of makes up for it. When the military realizes they're losing control of the sanctuary city, they kind of don't have a choice but to take out everybody instead of just the infected because they can't tell who's who at this point. And as I'm watching the movie, I don't even consider it like one of those scenes that make you question your own ethical integrity. Because what else do you do in that situation? Take them all out or risk them getting loose and have this virus infect the whole world eventually? Well, there's a third movie, so you know what happens. Later on in the movie, though, Hawkeye helps the two kids get out of there and get to a chopper. Hopefully get out of the country. Here's the thing, this is when the movie goes full nonsense. When Hawkeye's life partner shows up with the chopper, he has to make an emergency escape before taking anybody out of there. And while the scene was fun, it is the most unbelievable pile of bullshit I have ever seen in any movie. Okay, maybe not that far, but it's up there. Bro tips the chopper at just the right angle as he's flying low enough to get into a massive accident and turns parfaits out of these goddamn zombies. So after all that, they skip to Minute to the next pickup point, and Hawkeye goes out worse than Black Widow did in Endgame, giving us parody-worthy zombie acting. Anyways, we're nearing the end, right? The kids are with one of the military doctors. They make their way to the subway, or whatever the British call a subway. But it's pitch black enough that the kids can't see where they're going, so the military doctor uses the night vision scope on Hawkeye's, rifle. So we get a hilarious POV of these kids busting ass down a stairway. And it's supposed to be, like, tension-filled and scary, but it's not. Halfway through this movie, it turned into a comedy for me. And I take back what I said about giving this movie more credit. I mean, yeah, narratively, a bit better. Zombie action, tons. Cinematography, camera work, ass. Sorry, it's just true. The ending, intriguing, but I just didn't give a fuck. The trailer for 28 Years Later, though, that looks like a hella good flick. But I'm going to give 2007's 28 Weeks Later a 5 out of 10. I mean, if you need some context, go watch these movies before you watch the third. But for me, I'm never watching these again.